What if Mulan was not one woman, but the shadow of many unnamed lives? No confirmed face, no proven battlefield, no final record. Yet for over 1,000 years, one mysterious name survived when countless real soldiers vanished from history. For most people, Mulan feels familiar. A daughter takes her father's place. She hides her identity. She goes to war. She returns home, changed forever. But the older we make the story, the less certain it becomes. The records do not give us the certainty we might expect. They give us a name, a poem, and a mystery that refuses to close. Welcome to English Mindwave. And if you enjoy learning English through powerful historical stories, please subscribe to support this channel and help us keep creating more meaningful journeys like this. This is not a movie review. It is not the story of a princess. It is the search for the shadow behind a legend. Because Mulan first reaches us not as a full biography, but as an old ballad, a short poem that feels almost like a memory someone was afraid to lose. The poem is often connected to the Northern Dynasties, a period when northern China was shaped by frontier life, military pressure, and contact between different cultures. Later, it was preserved in a famous collection called Yuefu Shiji, or Collection of Music Bureau Poetry. That detail matters because Mulan did not first appear as a polished biography. She came to us through song, memory, and performance. The old poem gives us a daughter, an army list, an aging father, and a decision that changes everything. But it does not give us proof. So the real mystery begins here. If history cannot prove Mulan, why did the world refuse to forget her? To find the first trace of Mulan, we have to step away from the famous image and listen to something much older. A quiet poem where the mystery begins almost without warning. And the oldest well-known version is called the Ballad of Mulan. And the strange thing is, it does not begin the way many people expect. There is no palace, no magical sign, no grand speech about destiny. The story begins inside a home, with a young woman sitting at her loom. She is supposed to be weaving. But the sound of the loom is not what the poem remembers most. It remembers her sighing. That small detail matters. Before we see a battlefield, before we see armor, before Mulan becomes a soldier, we hear worry. Something has entered her house before any army arrives. The military list. Her father's name is on it. The old poem uses the word Khan for the ruler, a detail that gives the story a northern frontier feeling rather than the image of a simple imperial court tale. This small word matters. It suggests a world where cultures met, armies moved, and families could be pulled into conflicts far larger than themselves. Mulan's father has been called to serve, but he is old. His body is no longer fit for war, and there is no grown son in the family who can take his place. In that moment, the story becomes painfully simple. This is not a legend built first from glory. It begins with a family trapped by a command they cannot easily escape. Tontu. And then Mulan makes the choice that turns a private fear into a story people would repeat for centuries. She goes out and buys what a soldier needs: a horse, a saddle, a bridle, equipment for the road ahead. The poem lists these things almost plainly, but behind each object you can feel the weight of her decision. She is not only preparing for travel, she is preparing to disappear. Soon, the daughter leaves home in the place of a son. The ballad then moves quickly. Mulan rides far away. She crosses cold regions and distant frontiers. Years pass in only a few lines. The poem does not slow down to tell us every battle, every face, or every fear. It gives us flashes, like pieces of an old memory. And maybe that is what makes it so powerful. The story tells us just enough to follow her into war, but not enough to fully know what happened there. That silence stays with us, because the strangest part is not only that Mulan entered the army, it is what the poem refuses to tell us. And inside that silence, the missing years of Mulan's life become even more haunting than the parts the poem chooses to show. The ballad tells us she served for many years, but it does not open the door completely. It does not tell us how she learned to move like a soldier, sleep like a soldier, speak like a soldier, and survive beside men who never knew who she was. It does not tell us whether anyone ever looked at her too long, or whether she lived every day afraid that one mistake could uncover everything. Instead, the poem gives us distance. Cold winds, far away mountains, the sound of war somewhere beyond the words. It moves quickly, as if the years were too heavy to explain. That may be the most mysterious part of the story. The ballad does not try to prove Mulan's greatness with long battle scenes. It trusts the silence. It lets us imagine the danger for ourselves. Then, suddenly, the war is over. Mulan returns with honor. She has survived years in a world where her secret could have destroyed her. The ruler offers her a reward, a place of status, perhaps a life far above the one she left behind. But Mulan does not reach for power. She asks for only one thing: a way to go home. That choice changes the feeling of the whole story. She did not enter the army to become famous, and she entered because there was a name on a list, and someone she loved could not carry it. When the duty is finished, she does not stay inside the identity that saved her. She returns to the place where the secret began. At home, she changes her clothes. She becomes visible again, not as the soldier her companions thought they knew, but as the daughter they never imagined. When those soldiers see her, they are stunned. For years, they had marched and fought beside her, and still they had not known. The poem ends with the image of two rabbits running side by side. Who can tell which is male and which is female? It feels almost playful. But beneath that gentle ending, a harder question begins to rise. And that harder question is where the poem stops being only a beautiful story and begins to feel like an unsolved case. Was there a real Mulan? This is the point where history becomes careful. There is no solid proof that confirms one exact woman named Mulan lived exactly as the ballad says. We do not have a clear official record of her family. We do not have a verified military document with her name. We do not have a certain battlefield where historians can say, "This is where Mulan stood." For a legend this famous, that missing evidence feels strange. The world remembers her name, but not her face. It remembers her choice, but not the exact road she took. It remembers the shape of the story, but not the woman with enough detail to close the case. But this does not mean the story is worthless. In fact, the silence may be one reason it feels so real. Official history often remembers emperors, generals, ministers, and wars. It does not always remember daughters in small homes, old fathers on army lists, or ordinary soldiers who survived at the edge of great events. Many people lived inside history without ever being written clearly into it. So Mulan may have been one real woman whose life became a song. Or she may have been shaped from several stories, several families, several forgotten acts of courage from a world of military duty and unstable frontiers. She may not be easy to prove because she belonged to the kind of people history often left behind. That is what makes the mystery deeper. If Mulan was only a fictional character, why did her story feel believable enough to survive for centuries? And if she was real, why did history preserve the legend but lose the woman? Maybe Mulan survived, not because history could prove her, but because history had forgotten too many people like her. And if history lost the woman, but kept the name, then every generation that retold Mulan added another mask over the mystery. After the old ballad, Mulan did not stay frozen in one form. Centuries later, writers and performers reshaped her again. In the Ming Dynasty, a well-known play helped give Mulan a clearer identity, including the family name Hua. Later versions added more emotion, more drama, and sometimes more tragedy. Slowly, Mulan became less like a shadow from an old poem and more like a complete character people could imagine, admire, and retell. Her story moved through time. It entered plays, operas, books, and later modern adaptations seen around the world, and each version kept something from the old poem. But each one also added something new. Some versions made the story more dramatic. Some added romance. Others turned Mulan into a stronger symbol of loyalty, honor, or female courage. This is not unusual. Living stories change because people bring their own world into them. But with Mulan, every new version also makes the mystery harder to reach. The more famous she becomes, the more masks we must look through to find the older figure beneath. And maybe that is why the legend still works. Mulan is never only one thing. She is a daughter, a soldier, a missing woman, a poem, a question, and a mirror. For English learners, stories like this are powerful because the words connect to images, mystery, and feeling. We remember language better when we want to know what happens next. In the end, Mulan's story does not need a perfect answer to stay powerful. Maybe she was one real woman. Maybe she was shaped from many unnamed lives. Or maybe she became a legend because the old poem captured something people understood immediately. A family under pressure, a father too old for war, and a daughter who made a choice no one expected. Maybe that is why the story lasted. It turned one private decision into a memory and people could carry for centuries. The lesson is simple. Sometimes life asks us to step into a difficult role before we feel ready. And in our own lives, that may mean supporting family, starting again after failure, learning a new language, or continuing quietly when no one sees the effort. Do you think Mulan was real, or a legend made from many forgotten stories? Please share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to English Mindwave to support more stories like this.